Hello, everyone, and welcome to Walking Through the Bible. Why should you be a Christian? Well, some good answers would be because I love God, because I want to live a good life on this earth, and God is the one who defines what is good. But another answer is because I want to go to heaven. Not simply I want to avoid hell, but I want to go to heaven and to be with God for eternity. Now, if we're not careful, we might think that this is a Holy New Testament idea, but it's not, for it's talked about right here in Psalm 61. So if you have a Bible with you, and turn to the book of Psalms, to Psalm 61. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 8. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Psalm 61, beginning at verse 1. To the chief musician, on a stringed instrument, a psalm of David. Hear my cry, O God, attend to my prayer. For the end of the earth I will cry to you when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I, for you have been a shelter to me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in your tabernacle forever. I will trust in the shelter of your wings. For you, O God, have heard my vows. You have given me the heritage of those who fear your name. You will prolong the king's life, his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. O prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. So I will sing praise to your name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. This psalm is written to the chief musician, meaning that it was meant for temple worship and was meant to be sung with a stringed instrument accompaniment. Now, we've discussed before that instruments of music were authorized in the Old Testament worship, hence their inclusion here, but they are not authorized in the New Testament, hence why it would not be right to use them in worship today. This is said to be a psalm of David, and there's no real reason not to accept this as true. However, we don't know when in David's life this would refer to. However, due to the content about God's past protection from his enemies, it would seem to fit to a later part of David's life. David begins the psalm in prayer to God, pleading with God to hear his cry. He says that from the end of the earth he would cry to the Lord. Now, of course, we know that the earth is round, and so technically there is no end of the earth to reach, but this is poetic language, not a statement of scientific fact. So we should treat it as such. In fact, we use this figure of speech today, usually in love poetry, by saying that I have searched to the ends of the earth and have found you, the one that I love. Everybody knows that we mean that I have searched everywhere and finally have found the object of my love, and nobody is going to stand up and say, well, Jeremy, in actuality, you should know that there is no end of the earth because the earth is round. We understand what I meant. It is poetic and sounded nice, and so we interpret it that way. The same goes here in Psalm 61. David is saying that no matter where he is, he will cry out to the Lord, and he trusts that the Lord will hear his cry, for the Lord is everywhere. And when David's heart is overwhelmed, he asks God to lead him to the rock that was higher than himself. Now, some think that this could refer to Mount Zion, Jerusalem, where God's temple was, and maybe that idea is why David used the language here. However, from the rest of the psalm, which describes how God had protected David, the rock that is higher than David is God himself. It was God who was the one who sheltered David, which can be said was done by hiding David in the cleft of the rock. It was God who was the strong tower from David's enemy, with a tower having a foundation on the rock. It is therefore safe to conclude that David is speaking of God as the rock that was higher than him. And where would God be? Well, ultimately in heaven. David was therefore asking God to remember him at death and bring him before his presence forever, providing David ultimate deliverance. Now, this might not be obvious at first glance, but look at the rest of the psalm. David wanted to abide in God's tabernacle forever. God's tabernacle was in Jerusalem during much of David's reign, but was David asking God to allow him to live forever? Here on this earth, especially? No, I don't believe he was. So the tabernacle that David must be speaking of is the one in heaven, where God's presence actually resides. That is also what I believe David was getting at when he asked God to prolong his life. Sure, he could mean his physical life, but when we study Isaiah and get to Isaiah 53, we find that the idea of prolonging days has resurrection undertones to it. So in connection to all that is here in Psalm 61, that is what I believe David is getting at. David believed in eternal salvation, and he believed in it as the heritage, the reward for those who fear the name of Jehovah, that they will abide before God forever. To that end, David would take shelter under the wings of God. David would sing praise to the name of God continually. He would receive God's mercy and truth readily. David would do what God wanted him to do. For those who want to follow Christ today, the same is expected. Follow God in faith. For us, that means believing in Jesus, repenting of our sins, being baptized for the remission of our sins, and living faithfully from that point forward. It's that simple. And if we can help you in any way, please leave a comment below. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Psalm 62, verses 1 to 12, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. We thank you for watching Walking Through the Bible today. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. But if you like this video, we ask that you consider subscribing to our channel so you won't miss out on other videos in our series, as well as share this video among your friends so that the saving message of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.